Yeah. So, Brian, if you want to go ahead and start with whichever one you want to start with, or happy Cinco de
Hi,
Mayo,
everybody.
everyone. Yeah.
Um, Tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo, which, um, because and my name is Brian Petro. I'm Smart Guy in the Tie. And you are here because you love nerdiness and you love cocktails, and hopefully you like tequila. Because tonight we're going through a whole bunch of tequila. We're going to do some mezcal. It's going to be amazing. Um, Cinco de Mayo, for anybody who's really super interested in being nerdy, is the Mexican celebration over at the Battle of Puebla over the French. It was one of the few times they actually beat the French, and so they celebrate the heck out of it because once they beat the French at the Battle of Puebla, the French came back with way more troops, and there was not a question about who won the second battle. Um, so much to the fact I believe that Napoleon III was the next emperor of Mexico. And so that's what we're celebrating tomorrow. We're celebrating a victory of a minor battle in a small war. We celebrate it a lot more than they do. And we're going to celebrate it with some traditional cocktails. We're using tequila. Now, if you have just one tequila, let's say you just have a bottle of silver tequila, perfectly fine. All these cocktails are still going to be delightful. If you're like me and you've got some tequilas and some mezcals and some other agave spirits that go across the board, you're going to get some different flavors. You're going to get some different tastes. And you're going to have a few different cocktails. But if you have one tequila, perfectly fine. If you don't like tequila and you kind of want to substitute out a separate spirit, or you just get tired of tequila at some point, I would suggest rum, possibly a spiced rum, because tequila is a very unique flavor. You're not going to find anything similar to it on your liquor cabinet. And the last cocktail we're going to do, if you use straight rum with the brandy, it could get a little sweet. So that is just my warning up front. When you drink tequila, there's 5 different expressions of tequila. So the first different expression is silver or blanco, which is completely unaged. You might find a golden tequila as well. That just means it's got a little of the caramel food coloring in it. So you can have silver tequila. You can have joven tequila, which is young tequila, which is still the blanco tequila, the silver tequila, but it has a little bit of the aged spirit in it. It doesn't necessarily matter what the age is, because in most countries where they have age numbers on the bottle, the age has to be the lowest age in the bottle. So since it's unaged, there is no age statement. Reposado is the next level of tequila. This is actually a reposada, and whoever suggested Cantera Negra, excellent choice. Thank you very much for this recommendation. I know one of my early ones, Raiders on the Rocks, somebody recommended this. Finally got a bottle. But reposado is rested in oak barrels for up to 1 year. So it gets a little bit of the caramel color, it gets a little bit of the flavor in it, and you have yourself a reposado tequila. Then you have añejo. Añejo tequila is rested for over 1 year. There's no other statement on it, but it's rested for over a year. So it could be rested 1 year, it could be rested 2 years. There's not quite a limit. The statutes that the Mexican government put on tequila aren't necessarily that specific. Then there is extra añejo, which is a more recent expression, and that has to be aged over 3 years. So those are the 5 types of tequila. They're all aged typically in American oak barrels because American oak is pretty easy to get and it's pretty consistent. But there are a lot of tequilas and mezcals that are aged in different types of wood barrels. There's no requirement for it to be aged in American oak. It just happens to be something that's pretty common. Now, for those of you who like to drink tequila, I know most of you are probably familiar with the way that Americans drink tequila, which is either a lemon or a lime wedge, salt, and the tequila. You lick the salt to kind of close up your taste buds so you don't taste it. You do the tequila, and then you do the lemon or the lime. Lemon seems to be really Midwestern, but lime is more traditional. The first drink we're going to make is non-alcoholic, and it's a little bit more traditional as to how Mexicans enjoy their tequila. And the way Mexicans enjoy their tequila is with something called sangrita. Now, sangrita, according to what Google tells me, because my Spanish extends to counting up to 10, is little blood. And what it is, it's a spiced, slightly sweet concoction that they will drink with their tequila. So when you see the pairing that I have with it on the sheets, the pairing is tequila. Because what we're going to do is we're going to make this. And so if you're drinking tequila neat, you take a little sip of the tequila, then you take a little sip of the sangrita. And what that does is it adds a little bit of sweetness to the very earthy flavors that typically come through in tequila, some of the peppery notes that you're going to get, some of the spices that you might get, and it balances everything out in your mouth. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this sangrita. I have my glass. I have a lot of stuff in front of me, so I might be moving things around as well. And the first thing we're going to do is 5.5 ounces of tomato juice. Now, it is recommended that you do tomato juice. If you have V8 or if you have a tomato juice blend, that is going to be perfectly fine. But tomato juice is usually what they use. Now, I am using a jigger. This is a 2-ounce jigger. If you do not have a jigger, as a reminder, 1 U.S. tablespoon is 1/2 ounce. And that
Hey,
might seem
Brian.
like a lot of measuring with the tablespoon, but it is something you can do. Also, you can run and grab a measuring cup. So you can grab a measuring cup, use one of those, or you can do what I did and just use a jigger. So
Hey,
5.5
Brian.
ounces of your tomato juice. If you really like it, and if you have a lot of tomato juice, we can make Bloody Marys this weekend.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
So someone wants to know, just to backtrack just a little bit, what about agave wine? They found a margarita flavored one that's supposed to be similar to tequila but less alcohol.
So agave, if you step back even further in Mexican history, what Mexicans drank before distillation was something called pulque, which was agave wine. And what the Spanish did is they came over and they tried to take over the country, and they realized that pulque, the one thing that the Mayans and other indigenous people distilled or drank, was terrible. So what they did is they brought the distillation process over that they usually used with brandy, which was taking wine and turning it into brandy. So they took the agave wine, the pulque, and turned it into tequila. So you can get agave wine. It's made in exactly the same way you'd expect wine to be made. They just take all of the sweetness. They take the agave syrup. They take all the sugars, and they just allow them to ferment naturally.
Okay.
So now that everybody's caught up, let's add our 5 ounces of orange juice. And you might think this is odd, but if anyone's familiar with the Bloody Mary challenge that Dayton Most Metro puts on, this is what I made one year for my Bloody Mary. This was my base. This sangrita was my base. I used orange juice and tomato juice, and people really liked it. I didn't win anything because it was just a nerdy, fun thing for me to do, but people really liked it. They said it was a really different flavor for them to try out.
Excuse me, I have a question for Brooke. Brooke, I'm trying to get into the website, but it's asking me for a meeting password.
Okay. You shouldn't need one, but can you see the chat or anything? Are you logging in or?
No, I'm on
Okay.
right.webex.com.
Okay. Can you just email me and I'll handle all that, brooke.lepple@right.edu while they're continuing, and we'll see if we can get you the link.
Okay, thank you.
So the next phase is going to be to squeeze your lime juice. Now, maybe you squeeze your lime juice like I'm going to. Maybe you just have bought some fresh squeezed lime juice and are just going to pull an ounce of it out. But let's do 1 ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice. And if you're fresh squeezing it, depending on the size of your lime, it could take you 1 to 1.5 limes. And we're going to use a little bit more lime juice later. So if you cut some extra limes now, it's not going to hurt anything. No one's going to be mad about it. Which is what I'm doing right now. Because citrus juice, if you're squeezing citrus juice, let's say you're having a party for Cinco de Mayo, squeezing juice the day before, there's nothing wrong with it. Most bartenders and bar scientists will say that actually lime juice and lemon juice tastes a little bit better the day after because a lot of the acids have oxidized and it tastes a little bit mellower. And so, if everybody has squeezed their lime juice, you need 1 ounce of lime juice into this mix. I've got a little bit left over because I squeezed a whole bunch, but we have 1 ounce of lime juice. Then, now here is the big one. Has everybody got their lime juice going? We're going to put in a pinch of salt, however much you want. I am a person who does not love a lot of salt, so my pinches are very small. If you want to do a little bit more, if you want to be like Salt Bae and just do this over it, that's fine too. However much salt that you feel is necessary, just a little bit. And salt tends to open up your taste buds. There's a lot of places that in each one of their cocktails will put like a 1 drop of saline solution or a little bit of salt water in it just to open up the taste buds a little bit. So the last thing that we're going to put in is some hot sauce. Now it says in the recipe 2 ounces of hot sauce. This is up to you. Like anything else, you could put in as much hot sauce, you could put as little hot sauce. It just depends on how spicy you want this. So I have the Mexican hot sauce Cholula, which I can't pronounce, and I am going to put a liberal amount in it. You can measure it, you cannot measure it. You can put in with the rest of what you have in your bottle. And this is what's going to give you that peppery flavor. This is what's going to give you that little bit extra kick that you would have with your juice. So now what you're going to do is maybe take a couple pieces of ice and then stir this whole concoction up. So you've got your 5.5 ounces of tomato juice, your 5 ounces of orange juice, so a nice balance there. Lime juice, salt, as much salt, like a pinch of salt, and then 1 to 2 ounces of your favorite hot sauce. And then you're just going to stir it up. Now, this is something you can have tonight. You can have tomorrow when you're drinking tequila, whenever you want. You could leave this in a batch. It's all good. I didn't necessarily think far enough ahead to strain out, so here we are. And then you pour a little bit in. and you sip this with your tequila. Now, there are some people that will have it with some cucumber slices, because the cucumber has a little bit of a cooling effect. And there are some people who are super fancy that will carve little cups out of cucumbers. They will put the sangria in the cucumber, and they will drink it out of that. That's the next level stuff. We're not there yet. I don't think I'm there yet. So that is sangria. That is what's more traditionally drank with tequila in Mexico than the salt and the lime. And I'm wiping out a few of my accoutrements just to make sure I don't. Now, this is also non-alcoholic, so enjoy. That's where it's at. That's spicy. So are there any questions on the first cocktail helper, as it were?
I see people enjoying it. There's nothing in the chat, so.
They're disappointed. They're like, this is crap. We came for tequila and mezcal, not tomato juice.
Mine is super spicy. For some reason, it's incredibly spicy. My wife is running for the restroom here to.
Well, and it's one of those things that if it's really spicy, you can add a little bit more tomato juice. You can add a little bit more orange juice to balance it out. And like I said, you'll have that tomorrow. Mine's pretty spicy too. But you would pair that with the tequila of your choice, and you would just sit and you would sip that for a while. See if we have any more thoughts on the sangrita. Another thing we're going to talk about too is other flavors that I didn't quite get to in the cocktails that pair well with tequila. If you've ever been with me with one of these, one of the things I believe I've said in the past is drink where you eat. And a lot of times you want to have the flavors, like the local flavors, paired with local drinks. So things that are grown in Mexico tend to taste very good with the tequila. So tomato juice, we're going to find a couple more. I don't want to ruin any surprises just yet. Coffee is one that we don't have, but there was a recipe I was looking at that was basically a Black Russian. But instead of vodka, you use tequila because tequila and coffee go very well together. Tequila is just very versatile.
And someone says, could you use clamato, or like if you're not big into tomato juice?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Anytime we make a cocktail or anytime we make a drink or anytime you go back and watch one of the old videos or see one of the old recipes, you can add what you like to make it taste good. You know, like I mentioned, if you don't like tequila at all and tequila is not your jam, it's not my wife's jam in any way, shape, or form, you can add rum. That would be my suggestion because it still has that earthiness to it. It still has that kind of vegetalness to it, but it's not going to have that really spicy, really earthy flavor that tequila is known for.
Cool. I think we can move on to the next one then.
All righty. So what this is called the Green Bonnet. And I have notes over here, which is why I keep looking off to the side. And this one was actually an adaptation. It was called a Blue Bonnet to begin with, but there's something in this one that I really wanted to show off. So I changed it. I made an editorial decision. So the first thing you're going to do is we're going to put this in a shaking tin. Now, if you don't have a shaking tin, if you don't have one of these proper bad boys, and if you're here for the first time, or you just haven't done it, you can have 2 pint glasses or just 2 regular glasses of whatever you want. Sorry, I just noticed I didn't have something. But I don't need it. You have 2 glasses of whatever you want, and just roll it back and forth, because it's still going to get everything moved together. You're still going to get all the mixing that's done, but you're just not going to have the heavy shake that we're going to put into it. So if you don't have this kind of equipment, don't worry about it. If you only have one of these, you can find a pint glass around your house, and you can put the pint glass on top of it and shake it. That's called a Boston shaker.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep saying hey, Brian, but so it's okay for this one to substitute the rum as well for
Yes.
any of these for today?
For
And
any
then
of these that we do today, I would say that the rum is a good substitution for it. The only one I'm a little concerned about at the end is the dessert cocktail that we're going to be doing, because I'm afraid that the rum is going to make it overly sweet. But otherwise, I think the rum is going to be a good substitution for all of these.
And they want to know spiced or white? Does it matter?
I'm going to ask a nerdy question. What white rum are you using?
I'm not sure. They haven't answered yet. So
All right. Well, if it's anything,
White Dog.
okay. I would say probably use spice, mainly because it's going to give you a little bit of extra flavor. It's going to be able to give you a little bit of extra depth, and it's going to cut through the sweet a little bit more. So my big concern is it's just going to be overwhelmingly sweet. So what we're going to start off with is for the green bonnet. And hey, it also has the school color, so props to that. We're going to start with 1.5 ounces of, if you're using different tequilas, silver tequila. If you're not using different tequilas, tequila. So it's 1.5 ounces of that. We are then going to use 1.5 ounces of the lime juice. Lime and tequila, as you probably know quite well, go together brilliantly. So 1.5 ounces of lime juice. Oh, look at that. Perfect amount of lime juice squeezed from earlier. 3/4 ounce of orange liqueur. Now, if we just stopped here, we've got a pretty good margarita. It's going to be a little sweet, but we've got a pretty good margarita.
Can we do half mezcal, half tequila here?
Sure can. You can go all in with the mezcal if you wanted to. Next part is going to be 1 ounce. So where we're at right now is 1.5 ounces of tequila, 1.5 ounces of lime juice. How are we doing?
I think okay. Lots of okays. So
3/4 ounce of the orange liqueur. I'm going to go with 1 ounce of simple syrup. And where part of the drink? Sorry. And then I'm going to go with 1/2 ounce of the melon liqueur. And the reason I kind of changed it up, the reason I went with the melon liqueur is because I felt that, well, actually, melon and tequila go really, really well together. There was another cocktail I was looking at called the Bala de Canon, Cannonball. And it actually uses cantaloupe puree. It's a fantastic cocktail. It really introduced me to the fact that melon and tequila go really well together. So another thing that you can do is if you ever make a watermelon agua fresca, which we could do in a future Raiders on the Rocks, you could check out that as well, because the watermelon and the tequila also go amazingly well together. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some ice and I'm going to get my glass. I'm going to pour it in ready. So I'm going to put some ice in there. Then I'm going to take a little bit of ice. Now, everybody has their tequila, their lime juice, their orange liqueur, their simple syrup, and their melon liqueur. Everybody's got all that in their mixing tin. Then you're going to take a little bit of ice and put it in the mixing tin. Now, again, if this is a pint glass, you're just going to roll it back and forth like this between the two. If you want to try to get fancy, you can, go further and further back, but that's on you in your kitchen. If you have a pint glass that fits on top or a setup like I have, which is 2 tins, you want to put the one on top of the other. I always give it a little tap just to make sure it stays together. I have worn enough cocktails that I don't want to do it again. Plus, I have a nice shirt and a delightful tie from your university, so I don't want to wear it. And then we're going to shake it for about 10 seconds to make sure it is nice and cold. You want to give it a good hard shake. Really get in there with it. And I put it up to my ear because I also listen to the sound. To me, there's a certain point where the ice and the ice stops clinking in a certain way, and I can tell the drink is ready. So I don't have a strainer, so I am straining it by holding these together, which is something that you can do. If you have a strainer, you can use the strainer. But this is one way to do it, where you just hold the tins together, don't really pull them apart, and leave just enough room for the liquid to get out. That holds the ice in as well. And then as a garnish, what we're going to do now, the garnish that I have on the Raiders on the Rocks thing that I sent out is a lemon wedge, so I'm going to stick to that. If you want to do a lime wedge, you can do that as well. It's done in the same manner, just with the different fruit. So here's my lemon, and I'm going to cut the ends. I'm going to cut the ends off my lemon. So as you can see, lemon is endless. Then I'm going to cut my lemon in half. So ends off the lemon, then lemon in half. I only have half a lemon right now. Okay? Then we're going to take this half a lemon, we're going to cut it in half again. So we essentially have 1/4 of a whole lemon ready to cut. Okay? Has everybody got their 1/4 of a lemon? All right. Here is the important part. Here is the professional bartender thing you need to do. Now that we have this 1/4 of a lemon, you need to cut across it. You need to cut a slit through the meat of the lemon across it. What that does is it gives you somewhere to put on the lip of the glass. If you don't do that, you're going to kind of have to force it on the edge of the glass, and we don't want to do that. And then once you've done that, you cut it in half again. So you essentially have 1/8 of a lemon wedge, of a full lemon, and you just put it on the edge. So cut the ends off, cut the ends off, cut it in half, cut it in half again. So here's the half. Then you cut this in half again. Put your slit going across it. And we have a green bonnet. Everybody got their drink? Cheers. Time to try it out. What do you think?
I see some head shaking, some thumbs up.
I like it a lot, and it reminds me of a previous tequila melon drink we made. I can't remember what it was, if you recall.
We might have done a melon agua fresca before. I'd have to
Yeah.
go back and take a look. In fact, I think we did. And that might be what it's similar to.
I've got a quick, simple syrup question.
Mhm.
Do you think you can make it with Splenda instead of sugar?
If you're going to use it immediately, maybe, but
Okay.
it doesn't hold very well.
Okay.
I had a wedding that I was going to, and we were experimenting with that with the simple syrup. So when I made it, when it was still hot, we had a great simple syrup. It was fine. As it cooled, the Splenda started to come out.
Yeah.
So you could probably still do it, and you might get a little bit of that sweetness in it. But I just it didn't hold very well for me.
So just use it right away if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. The other thing you could do is go old school, and they didn't make simple syrups really back in the day. So what they would just do is they'd put in a bar spoonful of sugar and water. And if Splenda mixes well in the water, you can just do it that way because you're still getting the sweetness of the Splenda. It's still integrating into the cocktail, and you're not worried about the simple syrup part of it.
Okay.
Someone said they used Truvia and it worked.
Maybe.
Yeah, same kind of thing, right? Yeah. Okay. A sugar substitute.
There was one that I used that I can't remember what it was too, and then I tried and it also kind of fell apart.
Like a monk fruit. Okay. Thank you.
That was that's been my experience so far. So other people might have had it a different one.
I have a quick question for you, sir.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite simple syrup? Because there's so many. I got this one. Do you have any favorite?
Oh, Barsmith. My favorite is when I take the dark cane sugar and do a 1-to-1 simple syrup at home. I don't necessarily buy them because when you're making a simple syrup, and I probably should include these recipes as well for the next one, you can also make it at home using equal parts water and sugar.
Okay.
And just melt it in the microwave. The Barsmith one I think is a good one. The one that I tend to grab if I need it is Rose's simple syrup because there are some times that I run out of
This
time.
one?
So yep, I've got that one too. And this is what I'll use for events as well.
Okay. So this is the roses.
Yes.
Okay. And then what about simple syrup versus agave syrup? Any thoughts on that?
So agave syrup is going to have a little bit of the richness of the agave in it. It's going to have a little bit of the earthiness of the agave. In fact, we're going to be using agave syrup for a cocktail in a minute or two. Its glycemic index is different, so the body breaks it down a little bit differently. So a lot of people think it's better than simple syrup. I think for when you're using it in cocktails or when you're using it as a sweetener, the agave-ness of it doesn't become overwhelming. Unless you're using it in a vodka cocktail, you're probably not going to notice it. But yeah, I could use the blue agave, the agave syrup as well.
And last question, lime versus lemon juice.
Big difference. Lime is a little more tart. Lime leads to a little bit more tartness. Lemons can be a little sweeter. So like if you have Meyer lemons, say, a Meyer lemon tends to be a little bit more sweeter than a regular lemon. Limes just tend to be a lot more tart in general. So And lime tends to go very well with tequila because, like I said earlier, they grow a lot of limes down in Mexico, and so those flavors just go well together because they grow together. You can experiment with it. There are simple cocktails, like for example, what we're going to make tonight. The next cocktail we're going to make, the Killer Bee. I'm using honey syrup and lemon instead of orange liqueur and lime, and I'm getting a completely different drink. So it's really about kind of experimenting and seeing what happens when you do. I mean, if you go through and look at a lot of the old classic cocktails, you'll see that there's like little variations on certain themes give you an entirely different drinking experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I have one other basic question. I get confused a little bit. I've been watching you. So the bigger one is an ounce and the smaller one is a half an ounce.
So when you get jiggers, it depends on what jigger you get. So this jigger that I'm holding in my hand,
Yeah.
actually, let's get a little closer to the camera.
Yeah.
Water. So this jigger that I'm holding in my hand, the big one is 1.5 ounces. The small one is 1 ounce. And if you look on the inside, there's little lines
Yeah.
that show you the measurements.
Okay.
This one is a Japanese jigger, and this is a 2 ounce on top and a 1 ounce on bottom.
So I've been using the big one for 1 ounce.
So if you're using, so what you want to find out what that measurement is on top and which one it is on bottom. And you could do that, like I said, if you use, what I will typically do is I will use a measuring cup, like a lined measuring cup, and just see how much I fill it with. Or I'll fill up the jigger and take my tablespoon and just keep pouring it into the jigger and counting how many times I do it.
Okay.
That way you'll kind of figure out which it is. Now, normally, if it's a good jigger, it'll have somewhere on the inside or somewhere on the piece of metal what sizes each side is.
Yeah, she used to be the skittish one, right?
Yeah, this one says 1.5 ounces for the top.
Now they've
Yep.
And but it says a half an ounce for the little one. That's what I didn't understand.
Yep. So the bottom was 1/2 ounce and the top one is 1.5 ounces. And that will change from jigger to jigger. It just depends on how you get it. You have one of the fancy ones with
I've been using the big one for 1 ounce. So.
You're getting bigger cocktails, my friend.
Yeah.
Is that Montalobo? All right. Are we ready for the mezcal? I got mine. That's a good one. The Oaxaca, that's a good one. I have a legal mezcal, which isn't really illegal. That's just the name of the brand. I think I saw someone had Montelobos. Vita is another good one. Yeah, that's Montelobos. Lady in the red shirt. So the difference between mezcal and tequila is the same difference as bourbon and whiskey. All bourbons are whiskeys, not all whiskeys are bourbons. All tequilas are mezcals, not all mezcals are tequilas. In fact, when tequila first came out, it was known as tequila de mezcal, the mezcal of tequila, because that was the city that it came from. It's just that that's where it became popular, and so tequila as a certain place blew up. Mezcals are made in a completely different manner, and they're a lot more local. So if you get different mezcals from different places, they're going to have different flavors. Also, because of the way they're made, they have a very smoky flavor. So if you don't like smoke, this is not the drink for you. If you're a smoky Scotch person, if you like your Islay Scotches, get yourself a lot of mezcal. If not, try to stay away from this stuff. I am a fan. I like it. There's a lot of different flavors that are involved with it. Tequila is a little bit more rigidly controlled. Mezcal is kind of like the wild. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a riff on a classic cocktail, the bee's knees, which is called the Killer Bee. And so we're going to start off with 2 ounces of mezcal. Now, if you don't have mezcal or don't want to use mezcal, you can use tequila. Like I said, they're essentially the same thing. There's a lot of little technical differences to it, which we can go into, but on the whole, they're similar enough. So we're going to give ourselves 2 full ounces of mezcal. And if you want, like the smoke will be on your jigger. If you want to take a sniff of it, the smoke will be in your tin. It's very smoky. If I've said smoke a few too many times, I apologize. Now, because it's the bee's knees, we're going to use 1 ounce of honey syrup. Now, with honey syrup, you can do a 1-to-1 ratio of honey to water or a 2-to-1 ratio of honey to water, depending on how rich you want it. And the reason we use honey and water together as a syrup is because the honey on its own may not incorporate as well into the cocktail, but a honey simple syrup will. And because it's coming from a gold rush or a bee's knees, we're actually going to be squeezing some lemon. So if you have any of that lemon left that you just cut up for your previous cocktail, you could squeeze some of that lemon, which is what I'm doing. And then I'm going to cut me up another lemon because I need 1.5 ounces of the lemon juice. Now, we've had a few conversations about changing things up. If you like your cocktails a little less sweet and a little bit more sour, you can reverse the proportions. You can go 1.5 ounces of honey and 1 ounce of lemon juice. I like mine a little more sour, so I'm going to stick with 1.5 ounces of lemon juice and 1 ounce of honey. But don't think that you can't switch it up if your preference is, I'd like mine to be a little bit sweeter. I like mine more tart. And so 1.5 ounces of lemon juice. So we have 1.5 ounces of lemon juice, 2 ounces of mezcal, 1 ounce of the honey simple syrup, and a lot of smokiness in this tin. Now, one of the reasons we've shaken both of the previous cocktails is because it's got lemon juice in it. And if you have juices, if you have milk, if you have eggs, if you have anything that has a little bit of a protein in it or a little bit of a pulp, you always want to shake it because it's a little thicker. It needs to incorporate a little bit more into the cocktail. If this was all liquors, if we didn't use any juices at all, like say a Manhattan or a martini, we would just stir it in a cup glass like this. But since all of the cocktails have a little bit of juice in it, we need to shake them. Now we're going to add some ice. And for this cocktail, we're not adding any ice into our cocktail glass or coupe. I have a coupe. And again, we go back to, if you have 2 glasses, just roll them back and forth. If you have this kind of a setup where you've got maybe a pint glass and a tin or 2 tins, or I'm seeing a lot of you having the more Parisian type of shaker where there's a lid that you can take off, and then there's another lid with a strainer. You can use those as well. In fact, I've got a whole bunch of them that I don't use nearly as much as I should. But I'm going to shake this bad boy. Don't forget to smack the top. My hand slipped. And this might, if you're shaking with glass or metal, it might create a vacuum seal. If it does, you can just bang it on the table lightly to break the seal. Don't do it too hard because glass in cocktails is frowned upon. We are now going to take and we're going to strain the cocktail into the fancy glass of your choice. I got a whole bunch extra. Then we are going to take a lemon, and everybody's caught up. Everybody's got a cocktail sitting in front of them. We're all good. So we're going to take a lemon, and we're going to peel off the edge. I like to use a Y peeler. If you don't have the Y peeler, if you have any other type of peeler, even if you have a knife, just use that. Don't hurt yourself. I've got my lemon peel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it, express the oils on top of the drink. Now, there is oil in lemon peels, lime peels, and orange peels, even grapefruit peels. So it's all, if you express it on top of the drink or squeeze it, it releases all of that oil. Then you run the peel around it to get a little bit more of that oil. And then I add it to the cocktail so it looks pretty. And if you've got all of that prepared, you now have yourself a killer bee, which still smells a little smoky. So if you have your killer bee, if everything is ready, try it out. Let me know what you think.
It's excellent. Does the peel, what does the peel add in terms of the oils? Does it really change the flavor? Because I see that on a
It
lot of
doesn't always change the flavor. One thing it adds though is it adds that it adds a scent, it adds a smell. So you've got the oils that are going to sit on top of this watery drink because oil and water doesn't mix. And so as I'm going to pull this drink to my nose, I'm getting a little bit of that extra lemon peel on it. I'm getting that a little extra lemon scent. And when I'm drinking it, that's going to enhance that lemon, that citrus enjoyment. And if you're drinking it, even though, like when I'm pulling it up to my nose, most of what I can smell is the lemon and a little bit of the honey, and some of the smoke is coming through. But when I drink it, I can taste a lot of the smoke. A lot of the smoke. So what do we think? I got 2 thumbs up. I'm seeing some thumbs up.
Yeah, some very good in the comments. People seem to really like that one.
The thing about mezcal cocktails is smoky tends to be one of those flavors that either you like something smoky or you're out and you don't want anything smoky. And one of the things I forgot to say, so the last cocktail we made with the nice light fruitiness, a ceviche with avocado, tomato, and cilantro, because that melon and some of those lighter, fruitier flavors are going to go really well with that lighter, fresh taste that you have in the ceviche, especially with the tomato and the cilantro. So the green bonnet, that gets that appetizer-like ceviche. For the killer bee, it's barbacoa tacos, because A, tacos, and B, the barbacoa flavor and the pork and the richness of all of that meat is going to go really well with the smoke. And then the acid in the cocktail is going to cut through. So you're going to get this rich mouthfeel. You're going to get this oiliness from the barbacoa and the taco on your mouth. And you're going to take a sip of this cocktail. And the acid and the lemon and the honey is going to brighten up your palate again. And then you're going to go back and you're going to take another sip, or you're going to take another bite of the taco. So the first pairing is kind of they play well together. The second pairing I'm doing with the barbacoa tacos and the recipe that they gave you, as well as this cocktail, is you're using the acid to kind of refresh your palate for each bite of that barbacoa. So every time you're taking a bite, you get a little bit of that acid cutting through the oil, cleaning you up, and then you get a fresh bite. So you're kind of contrasting at that point. Then you take a really spicy drink of tomato juice. To be mindful of everybody's time, I know we've got like 5 minutes technically. I'm going to start on the last cocktail, if that's okay. Sorry, everybody, we got to talking and I went over. So this is
You're
more
totally
of a dessert.
fine.
Thank you. So this is more of a dessert-like cocktail. I discovered this cocktail, I want to say, a decade ago, and I have loved it ever since. And I want everybody to know about it. And it's called the Dolce de Tequila. And my wife doesn't like tequila. She liked this cocktail. So what we're going to do is going to take 2 ounces of the Reposado tequila. And I am using the Cantera Negra, which was, again, suggested at one of these previously. And I am going to take 2 ounces of that. This is another one. If you're using rum, use your rum. And the Reposado, the reason you're kind of reaching for the Reposado is because it's rested and it's taken in some of the oak. And that oak has a little bit of vanilla, caramel, and toffee in it. So that's going to go really well with what we're going to add next, which is brandy. Now, I have cognac. If you didn't get cognac, you can have a brandy. But we're going to have 1 ounce of either brandy or cognac. I have Hennessy, so I have way too much Hennessy in the house. But so we have 2 ounces of the tequila and 1 ounce of brandy. After that, we are going to we're going to dessert this up a little bit with 1 ounce of orange liqueur. So 2 ounces of the tequila, 1 ounce of the brandy or cognac. And again, I'm being super fancy. I've got Grand Marnier, also a product of France. So I've got 1 ounce of the orange liqueur. And when I say orange liqueur, it can be triple sec, it can be Grand Marnier, it can be Cointreau, whatever orange liqueur you have available, that is the best one to use. We're going to cut up another lime so I can get some more lime juice. And for a half ounce of lime juice, you're really only going to need 1 lime. And it's getting messy over here on this side, so if I'm moving a little slow, that's because I'm trying to not knock everything over. So we have the 1 ounce of, or I'm sorry, the half ounce of lime juice. Everything is lost. All right, half ounce of lime juice. Now we have a tablespoon or a half ounce of the agave nectar. So I have my agave nectar, and I'm going to add a half ounce of that to my cocktail. So to recap, 2 ounces of tequila, 1 ounce of of brandy or cognac, whichever you happen to have, 1 ounce of the orange liqueur, a half ounce of lime juice, and a half ounce of agave syrup. One very important thing we forgot to do up front. Whatever glass you're putting this in, and this is an optional step. This is if you just want to be super fancy. You might have one of those lemons left from when you cut them before. If not, just cut yourself up a little bit of lemon real quick. Make sure you cut a little bit of a slit into it as well. So take your time, cut up some of that lemon. And then what you're going to do with that lemon, after you cut it up, you cut up a little bit of a slit, you've got your wedge. You're going to take it and you're going to run it around the rim of the glass of the where you're going to put the cocktail. Now, a lot of you may have worked in old bars before where they had kind of a simple syrup thing or a sour mix thing where they would just dip the glass in a sponge and then run it around in sugar or salt, which is gross, but it gets the job done quickly. What you're going to do is you're going to take your lemon and you're going to run it around the rim to get that rim nice and wet for you. Then you're going to
Brian, is there a sub for the agave nectar, like a substitute you could use?
You can use simple syrup. You can use the honey syrup. Either one. Actually, I would probably use the honey syrup just to add a little extra flavor. And hopefully you made more than a half ounce of honey syrup. So once you have that, you're going to have your sugar. Oop, I'm going to spill sugar. You're going to have some sugar. You're going to have to put it on a plate or something flat. I'll let you all kind of grab your sugar plate for a second. Someone's already making a drink. They're like, I don't need no sugar rim. And sugar rims are always an option. Because once you have your plate, once you put your sugar on your plate, you're going to take the edge and just run, like kind of just tap the wet edge into the sugar. You're going to have this crusted rim. In fact, there was an entire group of cocktails called crustas. And if you do this early, if you do this before you put everything together in your cocktail tin, it kind of does make a sugar crusted rim around your cocktail or around the edge. So we're going to leave it there for a second. We're going to come back to our cocktail. We're going to put our ice into the cocktail, which I've seen a few of you already do. And then we're going to do our shake. Smack this down because last time I almost dropped it. It's getting, since it's cold and it's getting warm and cold and warm and cold, it's getting a little wet and hard to hold. There we go. Then once you've shaken it, you are going to strain it into the cocktail glass like I did. And then you can either take the lemon wedge that you had from earlier, that extra lemon wedge, and you can use that as a garnish. You can do a lime wedge in a similar manner where you cut the edges off, then you cut it in half again, so you have a quarter. Cut it into eighths, or cut the line in the middle, then do the last cut across. I am just going to use the lemon and put it on like that. So now I have a sugar crusted rim, got a little bit of the sweetness of the cognac and the agave nectar. And when I drink this, if I have a sugar rim, I'm going to get a little bit of the sweetness of the sugar rim as well. Has everybody got theirs? All right, cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Brian.
God, I really love that one. And I love it because I love brandy. I'm one of the few people that know that I'm like, brandy, give me more of it. Most people are like, brandy, how old are you? So what do we think of the last one, the dessert tequila cocktail?
It's my favorite,
Oh yeah, good.
even though I don't have the reposado tequila. It was still turned out pretty good.
Good.
I mean, the pocket that.
Question for the rum drinkers. How did those cocktails turn out?
It got.
Did they leave? Because I'm very curious.
In this last drink, can you substitute something else for tequila, or is it only for tequila?
I mean, you could substitute something else for tequila. My initial suggestion was rum. You could probably do a bourbon with it as well.
That's what I was thinking.
The thing that concerned me about the rum is the rum tends to be sweet, and I think that adding another rum to this would make it overly sweet. So, which is why I suggested the spiced rum. But I can see adding a rye whiskey to this because if you have a rye or if you have a heavily rye bourbon, you're going to get the spiciness of the rye with the sweetness of the cognac and the agave nectar. But if you take out the tequila, I might also take out the agave nectar and maybe put in some honey.
Okay.
And to pair this, I went with a cranberry mocha cheesecake because I felt there was a lot of sweetness in this cocktail. This cocktail was going to have, with the sugar and everything that was going on in it, there was going to be some sweet. So I wanted a little bit of the tartness of the cranberries. And again, I think, like I mentioned it towards the beginning, coffee goes really well with tequila. Like I said, one of the drinks I considered was basically a Black Russian, but it substituted out tequila with the vodka. In fact, the Cantera Negra has a coffee liqueur made with tequila, as does Patron and a few other brands. Do we have a favorite?
Yeah, drop it in the comments what your favorite one was.
The second drink with the mezcal.
Delightful. Killer Bee, I saw that.
I think everyone's just too busy drinking. Lucy's double fisting over there.
It's hard to
Nice.
It's hard
She's-
to type at the end of the class.
It's hard to what?
It's hard to type at the end of the class. I have to spell and things.
Well, it's because you're looking at two keyboards.
Yeah.
I
Pick
like
the one in the middle.
the green bonnet. I like the green bonnet best, but this one is a really good dessert drink. I really like this one for the dessert. But
Great. And like I said, I think this would go really well with that mocha cheesecake or some sort of coffee type of dessert or a chocolate type of dessert, because you've got that little bit of the sting in there with the coffee.
yeah, yeah. Where do you get that? Nice. Go down to the cranberry or the Cheesecake Factory. I guess they'd have it, right?
I put a recipe. I put a link for the recipe. I don't know how
Oh, sure you did.
boss lady wants to distribute those, but
Oh, this was really nice. The your handout was really great this time with all this. Let me keep up a little bit.
Well, and in some of the previous ones, he gave us, in the previous handouts, he gave us some of the like extra simple syrup, whatever. But we're actually thinking about, Brian, I haven't told you that, but creating its own webpage for this event because I think everybody wants to keep it going, which means I would try to archive everything and organize it a little better so you would have a resource for this stuff. If Brian's cool with that, or as we develop or even as we may at some point be able to do something in person too as well. So we'll see about that. But yeah, like we're coming up on almost a year, I think, so we've got quite a nice little stockpile of recipes. So if there's anything you missed, I'm happy to get that back out to you.
In your archive, it'd be great to just print the shopping list.
Roll and toss together, but we did this so that we could hear each other.
Love this format, except it's a little bit early for me at 2:30 in California. But what the heck?
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? So
In Dayton, Ohio.
let's be fair. You can't drink all day unless you start in the morning.
there you go. All right, guys. Well, happy Cinco de Mayo Eve.
Enjoy your Cinco de Mayo
I
tomorrow.
hope you have some tacos or do something fun or enjoy another round of drinks. And as always, so we'll look to see if we could get the next one scheduled. If you have ideas, feel free to email me or put anything in the chat real quick too if there's something you'd like to see for the next go round. Because we've been trying to do all the things that you guys ask for. So let us know what you want and we'll get another one on the books. Maybe some, I don't know, Margaritaville summer. I don't know. I'm thinking Hawaiian shirt, something. I don't know. We'll see. But whatever you'd like to do, send us your ideas on what you'd like to learn about. And of course, we'll get this up on the website. And I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank
Bruce.
you. And Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. Smart Guy in a Tie. Just look for me, and I'm all over the place.
Yep.
Y'all come back.
All right. Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
day.
Have a great night. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Bye.
Thanks, Brian. We'll talk soon.
You're welcome, Brooke. And I'm happy to help you with that archive.
Okay,
Whatever you
cool.
need, let me know.
I'll get with you. All right. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. Getting there. Yeah, I think their communication skills are quite lacking when it comes to engaging with the communities. And I'm not sure why, because I think if anything, we should have more of a say than the city. I mean, I get the city's going to want to say something, but we have to live with it. Mhm. They're making sure we all knew what we're supposed to be voting for. Well, I mean, I know today was a big day, but still, I mean, we've got to make sure that the neighborhood is being taken care of. And we're the ones who are actually here living it, talking it, doing all this stuff. So, I mean, if we're sitting here going, hey, you know what's going to be really cool? Having a Waffle House or having a wrestling rink, that should be on us. It shouldn't be the city necessarily stepping above us and saying you can't have that or you can't have